right, everyone, welcome to Tap in with us on a very hot day in Denmark. So we are back with Dr. Claus Springborg, and when I say back, it's because we're doing a bit of a series with you. I think it's in 5 parts, right?
Let's see.
Let's see.
5, maybe maybe more.
Let's see how long we last, how long it takes. But so there's been one episode, I'll link to that in the show notes before, and we're jumping into a book that I'm pre-reading. It's not out yet, but it's coming in December 2024. And this is I don't know if it's the second chapter, but it's the second knot that we're talking about, the knot of conditionality.
Yes.
Do you want to say anything before I go on?
Yeah, maybe just to, if this is the first thing that people see, so just to say that the book is about what I call being-centered therapy, which is therapy that where the main component is to get experiences of becoming aware of being in the present moment, and then hanging out with that and let that do as much of the therapeutic work as possible. And in order to do this, there are these 5 knots, which are 5 patterns general patterns that take people's awareness away from being. And for each of these patterns, there's a different way of working. So and the second one is here, the knot of conditionality. So this is a specific knot to work with.
Perfect. It's very simple set. I like that. Good. And it makes a lot more sense to me personally after having read this second chapter, and after reading it, I can relate it to what we spoke about last time, being-centered therapy, where we don't lack anything, even though our interpretations of ourselves and the environment can make it challenging to navigate the world. It's not that we lack anything in ourselves. So the therapist should rather challenge the client's perspective, so we become aware of being.
Yes.
Right? In the moment, than these false assumptions. And so it's that we can distract ourselves. I'm saying it out loud so I can get validation that it's correct. That it's that we distract ourselves from noticing what we already have.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And our real goal is to experience being. This is really good, and I think it might be underneath certain therapeutic modalities.
There's many therapeutic modalities that work with this. This is not. I'm not the first one to have this approach.
But in a way, you're saying it out loud in a different way. You're saying this is actually what we seek.
Yes, and I think also one of my objectives with writing the book is to give a framework that can unite these different therapeutic modalities. So there might be many ways of making people aware of being, and there might be many ways of utilizing those experiences to correct some of the assumptions that underpin a lot of our suffering, like, for example, the assumption that we are faulty, that we lack a lot of different things, and these kind of things. So and then I think when I give these 5 knots, what I see is that some modalities will work very much with the knot of conditionality. Others will work very much with the knot of negative reification, for example. Others will work a lot with something else. And sometimes the clashes between the modalities is because they work with different knots, and therefore they approach things differently. But if they understand that the fundamental principle that they all work with is creating awareness of being in the present moment and then letting that do the therapeutic work, then they can more learn from each other instead of sort of seemingly being at odds with each other.
And when you say they?
Different schools of therapy,
Therapists.
Different approaches to therapy.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. And I just want to compliment you because reading this chapter, this is, for me, this is just being honest, this is an interview, and I can just, skip through parts, and I'll do that when I'm busy. And I decided to do that because I thought I can't. It's too much. But it was so good that I've read it cover to cover. It's the reason why I find it so good and valuable is that it gives examples of exactly what my clients are saying in therapy. It's like word to word, that's what they say. And I'm like, okay, what does he go on to say that I should now say then? What is the solution here? So I want to ask you about some of that to bring that up to our listeners. Some of these things that we hear our clients say and we find ourselves saying in therapy as well. For example, what do you say to a client who wants to change? Like, I want to change this thing. If it's my love life or whatever, I want to change it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know. What should I do? I don't know how to do this.
So whenever I hear a client coming in, and that's why many people come to therapy, right? They want to make changes about themselves, about their lives, about their partner sometimes, about whatever. Yeah. They want to make changes. And the first thing that I ask is why? And it doesn't matter how intuitively reasonable it sounds, I always ask why. Because when I hear a wish to change something combined with a certain sense of urgency, that tells me we're in the domain of the knot of conditionality. So and I want to explore what is the ultimate goal here. So for example, somebody might come and say, I want to have more self-esteem. And you can say, it's almost ludicrous to say, why do you want to have self-esteem? What are you going to do with that? Because it seems so obvious, like, of course you want to have more self-esteem because then there are all these things you can do. But sometimes I would say, well, what do you think it would feel like to have more self-esteem? Why is it even attractive to you? And the reason I ask is because if I can get a client to talk and describe in detail what it feels like, not what they can go on to do with it or something like that. If they say, I want to have more self-esteem, why do you want to have more self-esteem? Because if I have more self-esteem, I would go after the jobs that I really want, right? And then you can say, but then you just continue and say, okay, but why do you want those jobs? And I keep asking until I get to a felt sense. Because usually what motivates clients is that they want to do stuff because they think it's going to bring them a feeling. If it doesn't bring a feeling, they don't care about it. The self-esteem and the new job is not going to matter one iota if it doesn't bring some sort of felt sense, a feeling. And I want to hear what that feeling is. So maybe if people say, I want more self-esteem. Why? Because I want to get those jobs. Why do you want to get those jobs? Because if I get those jobs, I'm going to feel like a shining star. Now we're talking about, that's the end goal. That's the feeling. And then I will ask them to say, okay, can you describe in detail, just so I understand it, what does it feel like to be a shining star? And you see people light up, right? Literally. And say, oh my God. And you can see their shoulders drop and they say, but then I can relax and I can let my light shine, and it's this kind of light, and I feel radiant and expanded, and they look like they're feeling radiant and expanded. And in that moment, I will say, can you feel what you're talking about? And they say, yes, this is so good. And then I point out the obvious. You're feeling it, but you have no more or less self-esteem now than you had at the start of the session. You don't have a different job than at the start of the session. So actually, I think we just found a shortcut to getting what you want. Right? The thing you really want is to feel like this, like a shining star. You're feeling it now. You didn't make any change in your life. So this is when people come and they want to make changes, I want to hear what is the feeling you're pursuing, and then I'll interview them about the feeling like we talked about last time. I'll use all these tricks to interview them about the feeling. And when they feel the feeling, I will say, so you believed that you had to first get a lot of self-worth and then do a lot of job interviews and then landing one job and then get a promotion. And you had this whole long action plan to get to the feeling. You just found a shortcut. You're feeling it now, but you didn't do any of these things. So these things can't be essential. You don't have to do them to have this feeling.
Then you also have the example how this can go in the book, that people can come to a point of I just want to give up. It's too far away from me. I mean, even I've sensed it maybe, but it's not realistic. It's never gonna come. And then what do you do with that giving up?
Yes. So what I just described was actually a process, a typical process of the knot of conditionality, when there are when it's completely smooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, when people come with their plans, so they come and they want to change something in their lives, there's a couple of things. Sometimes they will just think it's a really good idea and it's achievable. I want more self-esteem. I go to therapy. I heard about other people going to therapy, getting more self-esteem. I think it can be done, and I think it's a good thing to do. Then it's rather uncomplicated. But sometimes people will say, I want to get more self-esteem. I think it's the right thing to do, but I've been trying for so many years and it just hasn't worked. And I actually don't think I can do it. So they still have a wish to change something in their lives, but they think they can't do it.
Exactly.
In those cases, sometimes people will even be a little bit unwilling to discuss what they would feel if they got it, because they will literally tell you, why should we sit and talk about how wonderful it will feel when I get this? Because I'm never going to get it. It's just increasing the pain. In those cases, I will say, well, we are exploring this because exploring this can give you self-insights that can help you in other ways than just helping you to achieve your goal. So you have to give a little some sort of motivation for exploring it, which isn't connected to achieving the goal, because they don't think it can be done. So you say, well, let's explore this impossible dream you have, just to understand where it comes from, understand like more about it, and let's see if we, by gaining some more self-insight, can do something anyway. You might not get the self-esteem, that's fine. You might not get it. I know they will, but I say you might not get it, but you might get something else by exploring. Usually that will get people on board and they say, okay. And then I can pursue the process in the same way. I can say, what would it feel like? I interview them, they feel it. And then I say, well, actually, you weren't really after self-esteem. Self-esteem was just a means to an end. This is the end and you have it now. So let's just forget about self-esteem and enjoy being a shining star. Maybe incidentally being a shiny star and walking around feeling this feeling is also going to do something good for your self-esteem. But even if it doesn't, you still gained a treasure, right? Something really precious. And then, of course, there are the other... now we're on this topic, right? So people come with an idea for something they want to change. They can think it's possible or not possible. But there's also another dimension. They can think it's a good thing. They can be ambivalent about it. Or they can feel it's a bad thing. Right? Then they say, like, sometimes you will see people and they come in and they're like, well, actually, I really want to figure out how to manipulate my partner into giving me more compliments. And they're like, I really want it, but I don't like to be manipulative, so they're ambivalent about it. Or sometimes they even think, this is a dreadful side of me, that I have I admit that I have the wish, but you're not going to tell it to anybody because I feel that it's a bad thing about me. In those cases, there's another thing that we have to do before proceeding, and that's just normalization. Just saying, like, of course you want that. Who does, like, if anybody out there say they don't want to have a magic remote control to control their partner a little bit and every now and then, they're lying, right? Of course, it would be wonderful if you can just push a button and your partner does exactly what you want them to do. That would be awesome, right? So you normalize it. So they say, oh, okay, at least this person is not judging me. I judge myself for it, but here's somebody who doesn't judge, doesn't think it's weird, doesn't judge me for it. And then they can say, okay. And now we can then talk about and say, well, if your partner gave you all these compliments, what would you then feel? Maybe it's the same feeling of being a star that you're after. When you feel it, then you can go back and say, now that you actually do feel it, how important are those compliments? They might be significantly less important because now you got what you were actually after. Again, the compliments were just a means to an end. And when you got the end, who cares about the means? Still nice, but it's not like life and death situation anymore.
Right. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm gonna leave. I'm not completely acceptant of it, but I'll leave it that, and then maybe I'll come back and challenge you some more on it.
Please do.
But it sounds good. But I want to get to understanding the term you have, sensing scope. You say it's the process to use desires, wishes, obsessions, and compulsions to regain awareness of being.
Yes.
How does that work?
So when people want to change something and there's a certain sense of urgency about it, that's what you would call a strong desire or a compulsion or like these different words, right? So I just say all of those things are wonderful because ultimately they are a strong desire for an aspect of being. Like if you take it all the way, it's always a desire for being. Why do you want the compliments? Why do you want the self value? Why do you the self-worth? Why do you want the job? Because you think by that you're going to get a feeling, and that feeling is always a felt sense aspect of being. So I call it sensing scope because you sense the full scope of your change project.
Oh, okay. The full scope of the end goal.
The end goal. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Oh, like that. Okay. And so it's a transformation. You talk about a core transformation process.
Yes. So before we talked about how different modalities work with different knots. So the core transformation is a beautiful process. I was introduced to it back in the late 90s. So it's Connie Andreas and Tamari Andreas. I don't...
Probably. It's in the book somewhere.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
It's a beautiful book, wonderful book. And so what they work with is they actually take these desires that we, or sides of ourselves we're not so proud of. So a side of ourselves that have desires that we see as not so good.
Like you were just describing before.
Exactly. And then they have this question where they say, if that part succeeded in what it wants to do, fully and completely, then what would you get from that that's even more important? I don't know if I have the exact formulation of the question, but they have this question. And basically they're just inviting you to repeat this question over and over again. So they say, I want to have more self-esteem. If you just had self-esteem fully and whole as a way of being in the world, what would that give you that's even more important? If we give me the possibility to go after the opportunities I want. And if you could go after then what would you get that's even more important and more important and more important? So they come from an NLP background. And in NLP, you explore positive intentions behind especially negative things you perceive as negative traits. And for whatever reason, they just started going all out with a positive intention and asking for it over and over again, really intensively. What they discovered was when they did this, people would end up saying that they would feel wholeness, love, okayness. They have these 5 core states. I would call these 5 core states 5 aspects of being. And so in a sense, that process is the process of the Knot of Conditionality, specifically working with the parts that we are ambivalent about. And it can be extremely strong working with the parts that we are ambivalent about because we normally judge and reject them. And when we see like that side of you, that the jealous side of you, or the envious side of you, or the side of you that does other things you don't like, is actually in its own way trying to get you to a sense of wholeness.
Yeah.
That radically alters how you feel about that side of yourself. The one of the stories that I often tell is like, I say, imagine that you have a 3-year-old kid who goes into the kitchen on your birthday and try to make you a birthday cake, right? You go into the kitchen, you wake up later, you go to the kitchen, you know what that's going to look like. But the intention was beautiful. And our quote-unquote negative sides are like that. They're very much like that. They're trying to do something amazing for us. They just don't quite have the knowledge and skills necessary. And that's why they make a mess.
And in some, I don't know if you do it, but in some therapies you would also say it is a child who's
Yes,
doing
exactly.
it. The strategy, the structure, whatever you call it, however you're conditioned, still doing that is actually being done by a inner child part.
Yes, and I think it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of the strategies were developed when you were 3 years old, literally.
Yeah.
So those strategies were developed by a 3-year-old brain. Of course, they're not going to have like the full panoramic view and understanding of human nature and the world and all these kind of things. They're not going to be your best strategies. The problem with it is the strategies that are learned and encoded when you're 3 years old are often stored in what we call implicit memory. And many times, in order to change learning that is stored in implicit memory, you have to activate it and juxtapose it with a contradictory experience. Many times in therapy, what happens is you don't activate it, but you learn a different strategy, but the different strategy is layered in a different part of your brain and becomes something that competes with the old strategy rather than something that updates or overrides the old strategy. So this is why I say maybe we can have another session, because this is some of the neuroscience underpinning what I do here. There's a wonderful book on it by Bruce Ecker, who is called Accessing, I think, the Emotional Brain. And there you're drawing on some work in neuroscience, some work about memory reconsolidation and how to apply that in a therapeutic setting, which is one of the sort of like neuroscience basis for this book.
For this kind of change.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. You can, many times you probably experience this, right? In therapy, you learn new strategies.
Yeah.
They make complete sense to you. And then when you go out, you follow them until you're stressed.
Yeah.
And when you're stressed, you don't have the energy to compete with the earlier strategies and they take over.
Yeah.
And also, you know that sometimes in therapy, people can have that flash of insight and then they change their behavior and they never go back, and it's no effort for them. That's when the new learning was, it's like a hard drive, right? It wasn't stored on a different place in the hard drive. It was overriding the old file.
Yeah, that's what we want to have happen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we want. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not entirely remembering when this comes up, but you talk about the feeling of loss of purpose, amongst many other things. But it's just, this is what got to me, this feeling of loss of purpose.
Yeah.
Then that's when I could personally go to a place of hopelessness, if that's how I feel.
Yes.
But then, so it's actually, I think I'm going back a little bit to the inquiry before I didn't completely accept it. It's just, what if, because that's important, like not only to imagine, right? You can't just imagine having a purpose. That's a part of my understanding anyway, that we kind of need to live that out. Like,
yes. So
what do you do with that?
For me, like, when you look at, for example, joy is an aspect of being. When you're in the present moment, sometimes that appears to you in the form of unconditional joy, joy for no reason.
Mm.
Right? When you get disconnect from your all the patterns, the mental, emotional, and behavioral patterns, you're just in the present moment. Many people in meditation will say they feel such an intense sense of joy. Other people will say they feel an intense sense of peace. Not a peace that comes because they solved some problem or because they resolved the conflict, but an unconditional sense of peace in the sense that it's not based on any conditions. It's not it's not conditional on fulfilling certain requirements for you to feel the peace. It's just there as a part of being. That makes sense, right?
Mm.
Purpose is the same. Purpose
Okay.
is the same. Purpose is just one of the ways in which being can appear to you. You feel purposeful even if you don't know what your purpose is.
So purpose for no reason.
Exactly, unconditional purpose. Like you have unconditional love, unconditional joy, unconditional peace, you have unconditional purpose. You're here and you feel purpose. People say, what's your purpose? And you go like, I don't know, but I feel it.
I got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see. When you say that, I feel okay, it also comes down to, I'm not sure you're actually using that word in this chapter, but attachment.
Yes, in a sense, you can be attached to a specific, like, plan for getting purpose. Like, you. This is exactly the knot of conditionality. What you really want is to feel purposeful, right? Full of purpose.
Yes.
You want to feel purposeful.
Yeah.
And then you think, how do I get that feeling? First, I have to find a cause that I can get behind. Then I have to work with it for a number of years and get some achievements there. And now I can finally feel the purpose. I say, let's reverse it. Start by telling me about this wonderful purposefulness feeling that you want. When you feel it, now with that feeling, see what you want to do in life, right? Maybe the feeling of purpose comes before the whatever project you want to do, rather than the project creating the feeling of purposefulness.
Okay, so I like the part that when you're talking about not challenging the client, because now you are explaining it to me and I get it. But let's say we were in a session, I might be upset about that. Yeah. I might be upset. I want to do this and I can't, and because this happens to me in therapy.
Yeah. So of course, then what I'm saying here, that's what's at the back of my mind.
Yes. This is the explanation.
I would not just go like, hey, just give up that and just describe the feeling because no.
Exactly.
That doesn't work. You need to shape the session so that the client discovers that for themselves. So I would, if a client comes and say, I want to engage in this work with, I don't know, an NGO or whatever, something that they feel profoundly meaningful and purposeful, I'll just say, great, wonderful, tell me all about that project and tell me what you'll feel at the end of the life when you have devoted your life to this cause and you have really managed to do something wonderful for the people you want to do something wonderful for. What will you feel? Then the client will describe the feeling, and while they're describing it, they'll feel it. And I'll just point out, isn't it interesting that you're feeling it now? So you can feel it now. You don't have to wait to the end of your life to feel that sense of purpose. And all things being equal, it's probably going to be more fun for you to go through life with this feeling instead of going through life feeling you're lacking it and striving for it. And I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. Yeah. I'm just saying, let's give you the feeling that you're after. If you still want to do the same project, by all means go ahead and do it. But it's going to be a lot more fun for you to do it now. You're also probably going to be a lot more effective because your sense of purpose isn't on the line.
You put it like this, that if you challenge it, and that's the client's experience, right? If you challenge the client's experience, you only give the client an excuse to keep avoiding the felt sense of being loved, for example, being loved.
Yes, exactly. So if I say, go into an intellectual debate, like, can you get the feeling without doing the project?
And I'm like, no, I can't. I know I need to do this.
And I give you an excuse to keep avoiding being by going into that debate.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I focus on is, like, sometimes clients will come with projects and say, can you help me make this change in my life? And you will, as a therapist, will say, that makes a lot of sense. Right? A client comes to you and say, I would like more self-esteem. You're immediately on board, right? You say, that's fantastic. Then it's easy not to challenge the client's project because you actually think it's good. There, the problem would be that you might just roll up your sleeve and start working on it, and then you miss the opportunity of saying, before we work on it, let's see what the end goal is, and unpack that feeling. Sometimes the opposite is the case. Maybe a client come to you and say, look, my emotions are getting in the way all the time. I just want to learn to not have emotions, right? And as a therapist, depending on your tradition, you might go, oh, I'm not sure I want to help you with that because I think it's a really bad idea. My point is, your opinion on whether it's a good or a bad idea actually doesn't matter at all, because all you want to know is, what is that wonderful treasure that the client is reaching for? It doesn't matter whether the strategy is you subscribe to it or not, or think it's good or not, think it's doable or not. Doesn't matter. People can come to my sessions and, like, if somebody goes like, I just want to murder that person, I'm going, fantastic, tell me all about what life would be like once you've murdered that person, right? I'm not going to judge them for it, because I know that whatever change they want to make, ultimately they're reaching for an aspect of being, I just want to know which. And if I go into sort of some silly discussion about, is this a good strategy or not, that's a red herring. We're off on a tangent. We miss the opportunity to connect with what it is that the client is ultimately reaching for. So this is why I say never judge the...
What could it be if you wish for not having emotions anymore? What could that be that you're actually reaching for?
Peace.
Yeah.
They're disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, imagine it. No emotional turmoil, no ups and downs, would be so calm, so peaceful.
Yeah.
Now, of course, repressing all your emotions isn't actually going to get you there, but it's very important to understand what you're reaching for, because if you don't understand what you're reaching for, you will never discover that what you're reaching for is already here in the present moment, emotions or not.
Yeah, so the good intention brings you to what you already are.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I worked with many therapists from different traditions, and sometimes you really have to take a deep breath and say, okay, just for the fun, let's go with the client, even though everything in me says, no, this is such a bad idea. But just as an inquiry, as an investigation, to understand what are they ultimately reaching for.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you put it like that. That there's a good intention in anything.
Yes,
I
exactly.
believe that, for sure. So you've been talking about urgency a few times. So when it's urgent to fulfill conditions, and when you use conditions, that is pointing back to this knot of conditionality, right?
Yeah, so fulfilling conditions is just making any change in your life, right?
So when that's urgent, let's see, I'm at page 189. It's something about where you can reduce it to now I remember. It's where you can actually, around peace, right? Taking the emotions a bit out of it and reducing it to a practical matter.
Yes.
I really like that point. Can you explain that?
I can say a little bit about that. So, and this relates back to when I say even after the process of resolving the knot of conditionality, you know what aspect of being you were reaching for, you know that it's already available to you, even if you don't do the thing that you want to do. Even after all that, you might say, I still want to do it. Like maybe somebody comes and they say they want to start a family, right? They want to find a partner, they want to start a family. We do the whole process. We see that one of the attractions in starting a family is that they think that if they are a parent, they will get a sense of value, and that value, that's what they're after. And but actually that value they can already have now, family or not. And that gives deep peace and resolution, and there's something that's really resolved in that. Now, after that, they might still want to start a family, but then the reason they want to start a family is just because they want the family, not because they want something through the family. And many times, when you get to that point, the urgency is taken out of it.
Yeah.
I want a promotion. Why do you want the promotion? Because you want to feel like a shining star. I'm already a shining star. Do you still want the promotion? Yeah, because, it's kind of fun to, do something different. But if I don't get it, that's fine too. It's like there's much more ease around the change project because we have taken the layer that was about reaching being out of it. And now it's just a practical matter that's left.
I hope people heard that.
I can say it again. Yeah.
So the urgency is around reaching being.
Yes.
That's where the urgency comes from, or is
Yes.
reaching towards. Whoa.
Because it's unbearable to be separate from being. And that's why there's such an urgency in the projects we think will bring us back. Problem is, many times what takes us away or distracts us from noticing that being is here is that we are too engaged in the projects we think will bring us being.
Yeah.
If you're so focused on starting the family and where do I find a partner and why are they
It's
all
a
a
big
bit
one.
crazy and stuff like
It's
that.
a big one, finding a partner. We used that
Yes.
as an example last time, but we use it again because it's a big one.
It's a big think about how much effort goes into that project, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you on top of that say it's not just that I need to find a partner that I'm compatible with, that where it's sort of like our ideas about finances and how to raise a kid and how clean we should keep our home and stuff like that match, and we have some of the same interest, and I can probably have nice conversations with this person for the rest of my life. I'm not going to get tired of them because they're sort of reasonably intelligent or whatever it is, right, that makes you match. That's enough. But if on top of that you say, no, that's not enough. I have to find a partner that makes me feel valuable and makes me feel joy and makes me feel, increases my self-esteem and like basically is a substitute for being. Forget it, you're never going to find it. And this project, this impossible project is going to absorb so much of your attention that you don't notice that all these things that you're ultimately looking for are right here if you just stop and take a breath.
But even the first things you were saying, having conversations with this person for the rest of my life, couldn't that feel urgent as well?
If what you think you're going to get through it is an aspect of being, right? Okay. I need to have that because otherwise I won't have connection of what it is that you're looking for.
And do you use those five? Like, was it connection, wholeness?
Yes. So joy, peace, connection, wholeness. I have more than 5, but that's because I have one of the backgrounds I have is in the Diamond Locus Diamond approach. They have many approaches to therapy or personal and spiritual development have these classifications. In the Diamond Locus Diamond approach, they call them essences. There are a lot of them. They're drawing on the Sufi tradition where they're calling called Lataif. In like what's it called, IFS, internal family system.
Yeah.
You have the self energies, right? There are 8 C's, and I think they've added 5 P's because there wasn't enough with it.
Yeah.
And you can look at the 8 C's and map them across to the essences. It's really, if you look at other traditions, you have the virtues in Christianity.
Yeah. But there's something here. There's something here. There was like, whoa, when you said that, reduce it to a practical matter. That's when, when the urgency goes out, when the striving for being goes out, then it's just a practical matter.
Yes.
Like because I found myself many times throughout my life, especially earlier when I was more in my activated nervous system, reaching, striving, being desperate about, feeling this urgency you talk about. For example, finding a place to live. It was that for a long time. And I could go into many discussions with therapists about that because I just knew it's so essential, it's so basic to have a place to live.
Yes, of course.
But then that urgency, I can see how I could have separated it, because it would have been a practical matter, something that I could have been calm about.
Yes.
If it was not something that I connected, like I associated it with something around safety.
Exactly. It's like, so when you look at finding a home, right, it's like it has to be reasonably near work, your children's school or whatever. It has to, maybe you have a minimum requirement of square meters or something like that, because you want to have a corner to be able to record these things, right? I don't know, whatever. So there are certain things, like when we were looking at house, me and my partner, then I really wanted a basement because I like playing music, and it's kind of nice to be able to do that without disturbing anybody. So it was nice to get a basement. But these are like, that's just practical.
Yeah.
But if you think the home is going to bring you a sense of safety, a sense of being rooted and grounded in life, a sense of like my castle, my home is my castle kind of thing, and it has to bring you value and all of these kind of things, you're looking for those things in the wrong place. And the very act of searching for them is going to distract you from noticing that they are already here. This is why in many spiritual traditions they talk about the reason you don't notice being is because you're too busy looking for it.
Right.
Yeah. And this is very much what the Knot of Conditionality is about. It is saying, what is it that you're ultimately reaching for? When they notice, there was a beep, is that?
I just have a clock that beeps every hour.
Fantastic.
To keep me alive.
Good. So when you notice what it is you're ultimately reaching for, and notice that you already have it, then it kind of takes the wind out of many of your projects. Some of them are going to survive, but they are going to survive in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And when the wind is taken out of your projects, it's like you're waking up from this nightmare. You're not so busy looking for something anymore, and you go, it was here all along.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah. So the purpose of the Knot of Conditionality is really to short circuit the part of the brain that is just so tuned into the searching.
Yeah.
Because by doing so, people kind of wake up from that dream and go, oh, I have it. It's already here. Wonderful. I have to do much less in life than I like to do. One of the things I often say to clients, so sometimes I do courses where we, like for a whole weekend or something like that, we're just looking at one aspect of being and all the ways in which we can distract ourselves from that aspect of being. Right? It's sort of spring cleaning, right? And then we go systematically through, 12 different aspects of being or something like that. And one of the things I like to say towards the end is, imagine if you had all of these things, that was just like, you have it from birth. That's like basic cable, right? It's like you just, that's the basic thing that comes with life, the package of life. When you have life, you got grounding and stability, you got the peace, you got vitality, you got joy, you got connection, you got the tenderness, you got appreciation, you got the intimacy, you got passion, you got the love. You all of these things you just have without you lifting a finger, right? That's just before you even do anything, all of that is there. Then what do you want to do in life? I think that's a wonderful question.
And then people go home.
Yeah.
From that course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's good question.
If
I
we-
mean, but
yeah.
because one of your points is that activity is preventing us from that
Yes.
state of wholeness and all the other things you were saying,
From noticing it.
from noticing
Yeah.
the state.
It's there whether you notice it or not.
But you have many trainings behind you.
Yes.
Like you've done many activities to get where you are in life now.
Yes.
What do you have to say for yourself?
No, it's a very good point. So the thing is, we have learned to pursue being in these ways. And that's programs. And these programs have to be challenged and unhooked. It's because we're already learned to be actively looking. And yes, it takes a little effort to make us realize that we don't have to do it. But once that is done, like before, if that learning is actually altered, it doesn't come back. It's gone. And this is the key. So if my activity truly, let's say for argument's sake, joy is actually something that's created through your own efforts.
Okay.
If that was true, in order to feel joy, you would have to keep on putting in an effort.
Yeah.
Right. The moment you stop putting in an effort, joy is gone. If joy is truly a consequence of your actions, the moment you stop those actions, joy is gone. Right. If your actions, you do a little something for, I don't know, a year, whatever, and then you unhook, you dissolve the knots in your mind that keeps you unaware of the joy that is inherent in the present moment. And now you don't have to do anything anymore, and joy is just continuously there. That shows your action didn't create joy. Your action removed something that prevented you from seeing that it was actually already with you. This is why one of the metaphors that many spiritual traditions use is removing veils. Now, if there's something here and there's a veil that something in front of you, and then there's a veil between you and it, removing the veil doesn't create this thing. Removing the veil just makes it visible to you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. We are almost at the end of the hour. Can you imagine?
Oh dear.
But I think what we're talking about is going from lack motivation to abundance motivation.
Yes. So actually, that's very nice. What I said before, if you think that you're missing joy, if you think you're missing connection and these kind of things, then what motivates you to do stuff in life is, I need to do these things to get these things that I don't have. This is what I call lack motivation. And again, this is not my term, but I think I had it from Claudio Naranjo, if I remember right. I actually don't remember, but I know he uses it as well. And I think he's got it from Maslow, if I remember right.
That would make sense.
So yes. Now, if you have all the felt sense states that you could possibly want, all of them, with no exception, many people say, that doesn't sound nice. It sounds like I'd be a couch potato. Why would I ever do anything if I already have all those felt sense states? Now, the only reason people will say that, it's just because we're so used to lack motivation that if that's not driving us, we can't even imagine what would be driving us. But if you look at some of these realized individuals, right? Some of the, I don't know, Buddhist teachers or something like that. Let's assume, for argument's sake, they are not they have a realized being. They know that they are the Atman, the essence of them is the essence of the divine. They're not in doubt, they're not confused, they know this. They, every single time they sit down, close their eyes, they are immediately capable of reaching samadhi or like beautiful states and all these kind of things. They're not going to be motivated by reaching these things, right? They can reach it anytime they want, just closing their eyes, or maybe not even closing their eyes. Yet they are so active, writing books, opening schools, doing whatever, teaching seminars at a rate that will leave most of us breathless. What motivates them? It's not lack. It's more a sense of abundance. Think about it. The days you feel really good, you want to do nice stuff for other people, right? You walk down the streets and you feel, for whatever reason, you feel wonderful that day. Somebody's struggling with their groceries, you go over and help them. Why? Just because it's fun. Because you feel, like in the Bible, they talk about your cup running over. And it's kind of like when you have access to these states, I like to say that these positive inner states, these felt sense aspects of being, spill over into action. And this is what I'm calling abundance motivation.
This is really, really good. It's very helpful to have that division. Lack motivation or abundance motivation?
Yes.
Am I doing it because I'm thinking about what it's going to bring me?
Yes.
Or am I doing it because I have so much, I have more to give?
Exactly. And just one thing that I think is really important to say here. Some people will say, oh yeah, I do a lot of abundance motivation because I do so many things for other people. Check, right?
How can we check it?
Check whether thinking about just taking a couple of days where you do nothing for other people, if that's going to give you a little bit of a cold sweat, you are reaching for something. But doing things for other people is a means that you hope will bring you value, connection, whatever it is, love, whatever it is you're seeking. So doing things for other people is not automatically motivated by abundance. It can easily be motivated by lack. Many people will override their own needs, only focusing on the needs of others, leaving themselves exhausted and all these kind of things. When I see something like that, I say, this is probably not abundance motivations. This is probably lack motivation that just has settled on a strategy that involves giving to others.
Yeah, I love how we are complicated like that.
Yeah, you have to be attentive with these things.
Yeah, look closely. Yeah. Okay, this was so good. This was so good, Claus. And I just want to end by saying just one thing about your birth chart.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
Do it.
So I can't help to think, because when you have the archetypes running in the back of your mind, I can't help to think that this is the Scorpio journey in many ways, going from lack to abundance. And when we talk about journey, it's like, I'm not saying saying this is what you've been through, but I'm just saying that archetypically you are a Scorpio sun.
Yes.
And so we have archetypal journeys that we go through like that. So anyway, just think about that. But the thing that I wanted to say is the transit that you're having right now with Uranus. And right now it's a while. It's a while because Uranus is slow. I'm not sure exactly how long, but let's say at least half a year or so. Uranus is opposing your sun, and that's what's going on. And it's perfect for what you're doing. It's like it's releasing, it's like taking all of these secrets, all of the abundance, the things that you have looked deeply into within yourself and within what is your life purpose, the sun. Bringing that up, Uranus is bringing that up. Uranus is the wider perspective and spreading it out to, in particular, specific groups of people who's able to hear this. So I just thought it's an amazing time for you to be doing what you're doing, getting it out there, and I think it's on purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I
well,
think it's supposed to come out now.
It's going very well, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to be published in December.
Yeah.
And it is really one of the things I like about the writing process is when I write, I discover so many things. Like just I'm writing in the evening, I go to bed, then I wake up in the middle of the night with a chapter in my head. My computer is always next to me. I have to put it down or make a voice memo and then go back to sleep. Many times in the morning when I wake up, I've never put anything early in the morning in the calendar because I know so many times I will wake up with a chapter in my head and I have to just write it down.
Wow. But it's been a long process like that? Every day like that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Not everything like that. Some of it is also very clear and I just have to sit and write it. But when I write books, it's really a discovery process.
Yeah.
And this is why it takes me a while. This one, I've been actively writing on it for 2 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm telling you that every chapter is a book on its own.
I know. It's but I wanted everything out and in one place. And
but I'm looking forward. I'm taking it step by step. And listeners, if you wanted to read this book, you could do the same.
Yes, and actually, maybe if I can say it, it's like it's possible to pre-order it.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
So we'll have a link for that.
Yes, I'll give you a link and to the place where you can pre-order the book. Perfect.
That's good. That's good. So hopefully these conversations are helpful to getting deeper into that material. And it's been really helpful to read it. So thank you and looking forward to the next knot.
Me too.
Good. Thank you for now.
Thanks.